Welcome to TZ Live. I am Omini Odan. The creative industry, be it in the form of entertainment through music, drama or movies, art exhibitions and many more, is a major revenue earner for countries in growing their gross domestic product, GDP. The creative industry is a leading organ of employment, economic growth, innovation and promotion of social cohesion, going by 2013 statistical data. The creative industry contributed more than $2 billion to the global GDP and employed more than 29 million people worldwide. The major beneficiaries of the creative industry include Asia Pacific region, which has the largest market ahead of Africa and the Middle East. There are concerns that Nigeria is yet to optimize the full potentiality of its creative industry, which could be a major replacement for oil in its economy diversification. But what is the true picture? How much is Nigeria making from the creative industry, especially with popularity of the Nollywood, Kannywood, captivating music, creative writing and artworks? What are the innovations in breaking new grounds, and how viable can this be? Answers and more tonight on NTA Tuesday Live after this background report by Adiola Akere.
Nigeria's creative industry is a force to reckon with on the global stage.
And this can do a lot for the Nigerian people. This can do a lot for the Nigerian nation.
The evolution, which progressed from the pre-independence era to the present, has catapulted the sector to #1 in sub-Saharan Africa.
This nation is big. It's just for we to redirect our steps. I remember those days in NTA. It was a ground where everybody came to. NTA groomed the first set of Nollywoodians you have. Great minds. Great people who were not in a hurry to leave this nation.
Nollywood has maintained its position as the third largest movie industry in the world, with practitioners collaborating with Hollywood and Bollywood. The high ratings literally underscores the categories of music, fashion and the arts in general. The economic gains are enormous. Projections by a research group known as DSEM puts revenue from Nigeria's music industry at 18 billion naira in 2020, with the movie genre doubling that figure.
We employ over 2.5 million Nigerian youths, with its attendant impact on our economy. Worth over $2.8 billion. And Nollywood alone has 2% of the 2.3% of the entire creative sector contribution to the our own nation's GDP.
These figures may, however, fall short drastically, with the COVID-19 pandemic halting most productions following safety restrictions.
There are no celebrations of any kind. The hotels, nightclubs, restaurants, event venues have been shut down now for months. So the people who earn their livelihood from this enterprise are all in very deep trouble. And it will require some real good measures to bring the industry back.
The nation will get up. The youths will take their position back. How many youths are gainfully employed in this country? Please find out. Nollywood was able to mop up prostitutes. Nollywood was able to mop up area boys. We did not ask them for their educational qualifications. We did not. They came out and they served their nation. Nobody is happy to be a miscreant. And the moment this is created, you will see a nation bounce back to its glory.
Although there are challenges, opportunities abound for leveraging the prospects in the creative industry to provide support for small businesses and turn some otherwise unprofitable public sector into centers of innovation. In Lagos, Adeola Komiakere.
Unleashing Nigeria's creative industry in modern economy is the focus of Tuesday Live tonight. The program, at some point, our phone lines will be open, and when we are through to you, make your call, raise your concerns, and ask your questions. And please, in doing this, turn down the volume of your television set. You can also be part of the conversation tonight through our Twitter handle at Tuesday Live NTA. Well, in keeping with the social distancing policy, I have just a guest in Abuja. We shall be doing Kano, we shall be doing Jos and Calabar. Right here with me in Abuja studios, I have Adedayo Thomas. Adedayo Thomas is the Executive Director, National Film and Video Censors Board. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Joining us from Jos is the Managing Director, Nigeria Film Corporation, Jos, Dr. Chidia Maduekwe. Welcome to the program.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay. All the way from Kano, a Nigerian actor in both Kannywood and Nollywood, is joining us from our Kano studio, Ali Nuhu. Ali, welcome to Tuesday Live.
Thank you.
Joining us via Zoom in Calabar, Cross River State, is Fidelis Duka. Fidelis Duka is a filmmaker and the managing director of FAT FM in Calabar. Welcome to the program.
A very good evening. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, well, let's begin. The creative industry in Nigeria. Can you give us, in brief, an overall perspective up till now?
Oh, well, thank you so much. If you're looking at the creative industry in Nigeria, it has a different sector, but from the look of things, I'll tell you that the film industry takes a chunk of the creative industry. Other things under the creative industry, most of the creative industry are domiciled under the Ministry of Information and Culture, under the minister himself, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. And here we have, like I said, the film industry. Then we have the culture industry. We have tourism. And under it, we equally have NTA and several other ones. NBC. We have NOA, National Orientation Agency of Nigeria. And a couple of other agencies, Radio Nigeria inclusive, and a couple of other agencies. And if you look at what we call the creative industry as a whole, I wouldn't say it's the strongest, but it's a pillar that you cannot do without in a sector. Either it is developed in a nation, whether it's a developed nation, a developing nation, an aspiring nation to be developed, the creative industry has taken its role as a very key cardinal point of the society in terms of using creativity to pass information, especially these days, to contribute to the economic growth of the nation. Take Nigeria, for example. We used to be far from agriculture, but with the revolution of agriculture and the creative industry at the same time, by the present regime, it has moved us closer even to oil and getting ready to replace the oil sector. But with the COVID-19, there's a little bit on the play that has affected the industry. But yet, we're very resilient because it's creative. Creativity is an idea. It's an ideology that you can't take away. It's like a door closed somewhere and you see another one opening in all the creative industry. We don't see it has not affected us deeply. It has. But then, the creative industry is not sleeping, and we're still the only one now moving the society as it is.
Okay, let's go to Dr. Chidia Maduekwe. Doctor, Adedayo has given a generic picture of what it is, but let's look at it specifically. COVID-19 and the creative industry. How are we faring?
COVID-19 is providing a platform for us to rediscover ourselves as people who are already in the creative industry. And I can tell you that a whole lot has happened during this very short time, because when people are locked up in their homes and rooms and they can't go out to do their normal function, they turn their lightning rod in the area of creativity, and a lot of creativity has taken place. And as soon as the lockdown is over, you can see the system, the ecosystem awash with a lot of activities. Already, you know that, like we are talking now, based on virtual reality, that has been the standard, and a lot of people have been taking that on. But there is no doubt that the film industry is the tipping edge of the arrow for creative industry. And for those of us in Nigerian Film Corporation, we are more than ready, because we had already worried about this kind of development since I became the MD of Nigerian Film Corporation. I have been worried. I have been talking about how we can mop up our teeming youth out of the root, so that we don't run into a demographic disaster when we are priding ourselves as a country that has about 3% growth rate. Meanwhile, our GDP is not up to 2.5%. So you find out that that disparity with a rapidly demographic exponential increase without a countervailing GDP means that a lot of thinking should go in the area of creative industry. Bearing in mind the role that the creative industry played for Nigeria to become the biggest economy in Africa, it calls to reason that a time has come in a dwindling oil revenue for Nigeria, particularly the Film Corporation and Nollywood, to ramp up their creativity in order not to disappoint this great country that had depended solely on oil, and not realizing that what you have above our shoulders is far bigger than what we have beneath our feet. So the COVID-19 has given us that impetus to come back with certain confidence that what we have above our head is bigger than what we have beneath our feet. And therefore, creativity is awash and is waiting to be unleashed as soon as the lockdown processes are over.
Okay. Nuhu, you have heard from the Executive Director of National Film and Video Censors Board, and also the Managing Director of the Nigerian Film Corporation in Jos. You are an active player in the Nollywood industry, and given what we are looking at, what would you say is your assessment right now, how people like you are faring within the industry?
Okay, thanks. I've heard what they said earlier on, and I must confess that yes, to an extent, staying at home, being locked down, a lot of people are going to come out being very creative with a lot of new ideas. But then, how to execute these ideas, how to put them into play, you need capital to do that. And I think the lockdown has really affected every sector of the creative industry. So I must say, for some people, their capital has been affected. For some people, they had shoots that were planned ahead of time, but then they were not able to execute it because of the COVID-19 crisis. And that will really affect the plan. What they've invested in that project is all gone. And for those who have pending projects that were about to be released, they have to go back to the drawing board now. First of all, getting to address the audience and make them understand that it is safe for us to come back to the cinema is one task that is ahead of us. Well, for a sector like the music industry, you could say most of their content can go on TV or the OTT platforms or the internet. A lot of streaming platforms are there that they can place it. But then, if these contents get finished, that gap that will be created, the gap that will be created might make them lose their audience. So this is a thing of worry for us. Yes, there's one major lesson that I personally learned after this COVID-19 lockdown and what have you, I noticed that we were too much into, talking about cinemas. Yes, cinema happens to be our major source of income when it comes to film production. But then these OTT platforms, I think we shouldn't just be looking at the foreign ones like Netflix, because Netflix buys only a few of our contents. We should be thinking about our own. We have our own indigenous platforms, and I think we should be patronizing it. The citizens of the country should be patronizing it. Then producers should try in as much as they can to see that they make it very easy for these platforms to be able to access this content that we have. If we had done that earlier, we wouldn't be complaining for those of us that already have content on ground. But what I'll strongly advise is that the government really needs to come in and assist the industry at this point in time, because like 70% of practitioners in the creative sector are really down, and they really need that assistance for them to push ahead. That's what I think about this COVID-19.
Quite germane, some of the points you raised. If we have platforms within Nigeria and people don't get to know, you have thought about Netflix, how do we get to know about these platforms?
Okay, how we get to know about these platforms is one, for the owners of these platforms to really push, to really push them out there for people to know that these platforms exist. But then, not just pushing them out there, but for the citizens of the country to trust these platforms and be able to subscribe to them. That's the only way they can keep them going. If you don't do that, then there's going to be a gap. And that gap might make these platforms, not be as viable as they should be. And that's not good for us. So I think it's always good for us to patronize our own.
Fidelis, you're joining us via Zoom in Calabar. You run a private radio station there in Calabar, Canaan City. And it looks as though right now that's the in thing now. How is business? Is it better during this time, or is it dwindling?
I think, thank you very much, and a very good evening to Nigerians, and I hope we're all keeping safe. I'll start from the point of we have lost a lot. This is an industry that was estimated to have made about $3.8 billion in 2020 by the PwC report. Ironically, with the COVID-19, like you just mentioned, and Aliunu mentioned, the entire industry, the entire gamut of the industry, be it film, television, radio, the visual arts, music, have been totally affected. And there's no way, even us in the broadcast industry, and we're also part of the creative sector, advertising and all that, in the last couple of months, we've had this terrible low income from advertising. Advertising spend has reduced tremendously. Even with NTA, the number of adverts you see on NTA, even NTA, is just the COVID-19 commercials. Most companies are not even advertising. I think it's a big challenge for the entire sector. What we've lost is humongous for the entire creative sector in Nigeria. And it's not peculiar to Nigeria, because the entire world, like Anilu mentioned, I know people have talked about cinema, because cinema is a place where you need to observe the social distancing. Of course, even in film, a normal film set accommodates at least a minimum of about 30 to 40 people minimum. And you imagine when you have 30 to 40 people on a set, how do you begin to engage in social distancing? Assuming you have a scene where somebody has to hug or even kiss. These are the issues we are all contending with now. But I think what COVID-19 has done to the creative sector, it has created more opportunities for us to begin to think out of the box. In the last couple of weeks, people assume that the creative sector is just film, music, the visual arts. Even those who are into events, I have seen in the last couple of weeks where weddings are taking place on Zoom. I've seen birthday parties on Zoom. I've seen major conferences. We saw one yesterday, the Africa Day conference, on Zoom. So I think what COVID-19 will do for us going forward is that we'll be more creative and begin to think out of the box. because nobody envisaged what was happening to us. So for us in the broadcast industry, we have experienced our lowest point, and of course, it came at the first quarter of the year, the very beginning of the year, when, of course, we're just trying to pick up and understand how the business will go for the whole year. And we've lost the first 6 months because there's no sign that businesses, even the broadcast sector or even the entire creative sector, even other businesses will come into full swing until the last quarter of this year, possibly, because we are all trying to.
That's the trouble. We'll get back to Fidelis. Well, let me stay on Jaws. Dr. Chidia, given the analysis and the opening thoughts given now, specifically from Fidelis and Nuhu in Kano, I remember precisely on the 8th of May, 2020, the Minister of Information and Culture inaugurated a committee to look at basically at mitigating jobs and losses and to create circle for the industry. If I ask you what maybe line of idea will you give to the committee to be thinking towards, to give to government to assist this sector?
We thank our minister for his proactiveness to show that government is concerned about what has been happening in the creative industry, and therefore government is thinking ahead what to do post-COVID. In terms of strategic decisions that need to be in place, the issue of money has been raised by Nuhu from Kano. There's no doubt about that. But we must look inward and know that most of the funding, or some of the funding these days, can be cross-border. Government has already invested so much with our banks, some of our banks, financial institutions, in terms of funding that can be given for the creative economy or for the creative industry. So we have to come up with a template of assessing it. But again, like I said, we can't play this thing alone because the industry is a global industry. And many people outside the shores of these countries are interested in investing in Nigeria or bringing some inflow into Nigeria. And that is where a strong regulatory organization or agency is very important in order to at least, be the template, create a template for some of these inflows. Because take, for example, when we, as NFC, sign some cooperation agreement with counterparts, either be it in France or Germany, they want to look at how much we are working as a regulatory agency or government, and that gives confidence for those inflows to come, and which will be available for our teaming practitioners. There is no doubt again that we can't do it much if the training aspect is not incorporated, and government is worried about that, enhancing capacity. So, and a lot is being done in that area, and we need to take advantage of it in-house, and not always to think about how we have to travel to, New York Film Academy, as it was the case with the past, government sending some people to New York Film Academy. When here in Jos, we have, a training facility that people who have passed through here have done so well, winning many awards, on international scene. We seem to forget that, way back in the 50s, when Nigerian Film Corporation was the colonial film unit, we even won Academy Awards done by the colonial film unit. The Daybreak in Udi is a classical example. So if as far back as 1950, a Nigerian film production capacity was able to earn Academy Award, in the best feature documentary film, then it shows that we have in-house ability to enhance quality. Once we're able to enhance quality, which is from training and assessing some of the foreign donor agencies through the regulatory agency in government, then it will become an easier thing for our friends, our people who are the practitioners, for them to access some of this funding and then make sure that their creativity has opportunity for it to be, ventilated. I recall that before this COVID-19 issue come up, Nigerian Film Corporation had already gone into a collaboration with the defense headquarters under the auspices of the Chief of Defense Staff, which means, like I said, a lot of creativity has gone into works in this past period, waiting for it to be unleashed. So we are poised with support of funding, with the creative talents already that have packaged themselves to come up with an exponential growth in the area of action movies that has never been the case in Nigeria. So what I'm trying to say, therefore, is that we are prepared, government is prepared. That's why the minister set up the committee, and it's for us to do what we need to do to know that, one, we have to be regulated. If we continue with the attitude that there is no regulatory agency or the enormous responsibilities are not given, particularly to the Nigerian Film Corporation when some of these decisions are being taken, then there will be no hand in glove arrangement to make sure that the development in that sector is secured. You are aware that when Nigeria wants to do something in the area of technology, of course, they set up NIBDA to be a regulatory agency, and they had to supervise that. When the issue of power was to be looked into, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Authority was put in place. So there must be government approach and stakeholders approach to understand that having a regulatory agency is very important, so that one will have interface with the donor agencies and those in Nigeria, and then we all come together and in a round table move forward.
Adedayo, you have heard from Dr. Chidia Madukwe. Now, as large as the industry is, it's not just about Nollywood. We have the huge industry. Fundamental within this period is technology. What are we doing towards enhancing technology within the industry? That's key.
If you look at the creative industry generally, with the present ease of doing business of the administration, technology has rightfully taken its place, and which, of course, the creative industry has key into such platform. Take, for example, find the production. The present COVID-19 might not allow production. Cinema is not allowed because of the distance that has to be created and a couple of other things. But then, if you now look at, there's something I think Wale Soyinka then called destructive energy. Something is being destroyed to create something else. So the creative industry, on the other hand, started using technology to discuss issues, to have things done within this period, which is another alternative for physical meeting and whatsoever. So those ones are happening. Just like we're speaking with Fidelis Duka, and a couple of meetings he has attended, we have both attended within this same period. Those are kind of technology that is being used presently.
Like Fidelis New said from Kano that one of the challenge would be credibility. For instance, if we veer into technology and there's no credibility in it, the safeguards, how do we handle that?
Now, you see,
so that our people don't depend more on foreign technology but locally developed ones.
You see, when we're looking for materials in terms of washing of hands, taking some other issues, you discover that a lot of local inventors start coming up with ideas and doing things. NYC, the sewing of this, whatsoever. Those are locals. And again, there is no way we have to be sincere with ourselves. We can't live in isolation in terms of technology. It goes further than one in most cases. So where we're supposed to use the technology, rely on the technology that is being created by foreign. I believe in global trade. That's why the ease of doing business equally affected the creative industry. You can't run away from technology from other side. What needs to be looked at is how the government regulate this inflow of technology. Match it with us. We can't have everything. The places were so good. The report said we're third in the world in terms of film industry, but no, we left the third position to the second position. And now we are even the pride of the entire world. Anywhere you go in the world, they say Nollywood, Nollywood, and things like that before the COVID-19 issue. So basically, we are keen into it. We're looking into the local technology, and it's being used from different visual. We don't do, what is it called, visual censorship, online censorship. We don't do it before. We're still thinking of what to do and what not to do. But with this, we have to key into it. We do censorship on a daily basis and without meeting people. It has not affected us. It has kept us growing. So plus or minus, technology research that's been developed long time before now, we're seeing it coming. And that's exactly what the creative industry is going to key into. We can't have it all. We have the parts that we need to have from the global world. We match it with us, and that's all. The Cinema Exhibitor Association of Nigeria, they're looking into, okay, if you're not going to be able to go into cinema, they're looking into other ways of having an open screen where you come in, you park your car, 2 or 3 people in a car, and you watch, that environment as well. So it's like give and take. We cannot isolate ourselves from the world. We look at what we have, we match it together, and we keep moving.
Okay. Nuhu, back to you in Kano. As much as we know the challenge is there, it's right in the front burner. I expect by now, maybe in Nollywood specifically, we should be thinking of maybe in a few weeks, as much as we have the challenge of the social or physical distancing protocol being observed. Does this in any way challenge the Nollywood industry on what to do and not complaining?
Yeah, it does challenge the industry, because we now have to go back to the drawing board, sit down, think of ways that we could continue doing our work without, being affected by COVID-19, just going by the social distancing rules, because we do not know when this COVID-19 is ending. From the medical sector, some will tell you that it will take a year or even 2 years before it ends, like the past pandemics that had happened. So I think it's for us to just sit down and think of a way. Maybe we have to reduce the number of crew members we use in the production, and for actors, if it is not extremely necessary for you to be on a set, then you shouldn't be around. And even when you are around, if you are not shooting, then you should be kept somewhere away from the people shooting. That's one. Then secondly, talking about cinemas, I saw a write-up recently. I think the Cinema Exhibitors Association of Nigeria, they are coming up with some, modalities as to how we can admit people into the theaters with using social distancing without people getting choked in a theater, or even standing on the row to buy tickets. There's a way we can do it. So I think these modalities are what we are supposed to come up with. Then we think about how we can go back to shoots. But when we come up with these modalities, we need to present it. When we present it, then fine. Maybe we can continue.
The point I'm making, if you can explain further, is, for instance, a lot of Nigerians watching you now will expect that in a couple of weeks, Nuhu should be showing us one Nollywood movie acted from Kano, acted in Sokoto, acted in Calabar, acted in Lagos, but all telling us a story, and we view it and it delivers a story. Are you guys thinking toward that direction?
Not really. We've not thought about that. But now that you've suggested, probably we'll take it into consideration. But at this point in time, we have not thought about anything like that. Because a lot. But then, in Nigeria, most at times, when you talk about things, putting those things into practice is another thing. For instance now, when you talk about shooting in Sokoto, Kano, without people traveling, you could do it via the internet, maybe a Dropbox, you shoot your own portion, the other person shoots their own portion. But then, how is the internet connection in Nigeria? Is it, very, very accessible for you to do these things without having issues? So these are some of the issues we have on ground. Maybe we'll think about that in the future.
Let's go to Calabar. Fidelis, we lost signals with you when you were articulating your point on the first instance. Well, what I want to ask you quickly is, as an active player in the industry, what best succor can government offer at this time?
I think at this point in time, what is key, interestingly, is that the government must look at some palliatives. I want to use the word, I know the word palliatives have been abused. What I mean palliative for the sector. One of them, the first one, is not really funding the filmmakers in form of grants. There's this 50 billion naira loan facility that was earmarked by the government for small and medium scale enterprises run by NISWA. I think when the list was compiled, the film industry or the creative sector in general, not only film music, visual arts, was not listed among those to benefit from that fund. And I'm aware that the Alibaba committee, most of those who sent in proposals and memorandums to that committee have also mentioned that there's a need for us to be added in that particular funding opportunity by the federal government. Apart from that, also, I also think some level of tax rebate. There are some particular funds that the creative sector. I'll give you a simple one. It's the copyright levy. It's a levy on copyright issue. Let me give you the simple example. Like the photocopiers, the CD, the flash drives, when they come in, there's a particular levy that the customs collect on this particular item that can be used for duplication and piracy and all that. This fund has been domiciled with the Federal Ministry of Finance through the customs for years. It's a fund that normally a particular percentage of that fund is supposed to go back to the sector to develop the sector. That's one area I think the government at this point in time will begin to think of how they can support us. Because that fund is there. It's basically even for the artists, those who are into visual arts. Their works are either copyrighted, or even authors, even those in the film industry who make films, those in music who produce music. We have this issue of copyright as a major challenge. So there's this particular fund that comes in for photocopiers, flash drives, CDs, anything you can use to replicate or duplicate any creative work. So I think government at this point in time should begin to consider how that fund can be made accessible to filmmakers, to musicians, to visual artists, to authors, to everybody in the sector. That way it can stimulate the economy. You know, in my introduction, I said PwC came out, Pricewaterhouse came out with a report that if not for the COVID-19, the industry would have been worth $3.8 billion. You can imagine the humongous effect this last 4 months has cost us. I think government can re-engineer the sector because, of course, we've seen the way the oil price has dipped and fallen so far. This is a sector that, even with challenges I'm saying, we can be more creative. I heard you ask, Alino, is it possible for us to make films maybe in Calabar and then somebody's in Lagos? One of our filmmakers, Obimillion, attempted it during this period. He made a film from London and Lagos. He had two characters who acted this film. One was in London, one was in Lagos. And the short film, about 15 minutes. You see, people have become more creative. The only challenge which I envisage going forward, is the issue of internet connectivity. You can see the way, at my initial point, I went off because of the poor connectivity from Calabar here. But without that, we still feel that COVID-19, to me, has made everybody more creative. We are now more creative. We are thinking of better ways to sustain this business. And this is when government must come in. This is one of the highest employers of labor because, of course, we are aware that some major establishments are beginning to tone down their staff strength. If we re-engineer and look creatively how we can develop the sector, you can employ people. I'll give you a simple example. For an artist who is involved in artistic work, he works alone. So social distancing or physical distancing is possible with him. For a musician, he could perform alone. But for film, it's a bit more difficult, but there are ways we can creatively work that out. Like I don't know, we mentioned earlier, limited number of people on set. We do the basic social distancing regulations and protocols. That way, we will limit the spread of the virus, because the sincere part, if we must be sincere with ourselves, the virus will not leave us in the next 1 year. And we must creatively look for a way to solve our problem. And one of the first ways is that government must look at all these intervention funds. I mentioned the copyright levy, which is the Minister of Finance, from all the copyright materials that get into the country from customs. That's one. The 50 billion that was given to small-scale industries recently, the film industry was not mentioned. They mentioned agriculture and pharmaceutical and all that. I think we can also benefit from that too.
Thank you. Well, the point made there clearly is that the COVID-19 has made everybody very, very creative, after all. Well, we'll take some reports, and when we return, we shall take some reports and some phone calls. Our first port of call today will be from Jos.
The creative industry, which employs millions of people, is one of the most hit by the coronavirus pandemic. The rapidly evolving situation has caused an unprecedented human and health crisis and has triggered a severe economic downturn, thereby threatening livelihoods as it impacts the entire creative value chain, from conceptualization, production, and distribution.
One, you don't have production activities, but also the lull in the activity also give you a chance to go and produce more script. So I think post-COVID, we will see a burst of activities in the creative industry.
Economically, there has been a downward turn because, especially for those who earn from concerts and different kind of gigs and shows.
It's just that the way the coronavirus just come, and they say like artists will blow. The whole world now they talk about them. So, yeah, you are not the rave of the moment. May your own, you can't go now. You have overstayed.
To keep faith alive despite the major challenge of social distancing, the creative minds are still able to lend their voices from a distance by compiling and merging their artworks to educate and entertain their esteemed audience.
There is panic everywhere. I see your doubts, I feel your fears, but it will be alright. It'll be alright.
The internet has really provided the available reach, that we needed.
Apart from the online concert thing, I've seen people create drama or skits or movies on the same platform without meeting one-on-one. And it's a new trend, but people will have to get used to it.
People in my industry have had to turn to virtual means in order to remain relevant and to continue to sell their products and services.
Amidst the restrictions, post-COVID-19 seems promising for the creative industry as the lockdown period is affording practitioners more time and space to explore their creative minds, which will ultimately invigorate the sector for better productivity.
In still keeping with the conversation, let's take this report from Calabar.
That was the situation before the coronavirus assumed global dimension. Artists and other stakeholders of the creative industry were able to ply their trades as at when due. Research shows that the Nigerian creative industry currently employs about 2.5 million youths and is one of the fastest growing sectors. Unlike other businesses, it is witnessing a downturn following the pandemic. In Cross River State, the health crisis has brought a drop in revenue generation with a ripple effect on the economy.
The museum is one of its kind in Nigeria and in Africa, so a lot of visitors come in to view the artifacts in the museum, to watch movies here, and visitors are not coming in as used to because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So We've been affected in various ways. We allow a certain number of persons to come into the resort to maintain social distance. We have online services.
However, experts say the creative industry can leverage on technological innovations and adapt to changes to stay afloat.
Pandemic period to me affords us that period of introspection, more or less, for us to think about what has gone wrong, how to improve on the situation, and then we are up there. Apart from the commercial aspects, they can still do something about the creative aspects, but they may not have commensurate reward for their effort during this time, because everybody, you need to be alive to even be able to enjoy your money, to be able to benefit in any which way.
Being a critical sector of the nation's economy, especially with the diversification drive of government, stakeholders say there is need for government to assist in mitigating the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on the creative industry.
I begin with No, back to you. Listening to the reports that just played, the last respondent from Calabar talked about as much as it is so difficult, but it is time for people within this industry to think introspectively. Now, imagine you are serving in this committee that government says, tell us what to do. What would be your advice to government?
Well, fortunately, I happen to be a part of the committee, and I would say that we've been working. The chairman has really been doing so much to see that he brings together all the sector of the creative economy together. He's been trying to communicate. So what we actually did was to put up a questionnaire, and we passed it across, via the internet to the various practitioners in various sectors for them to fill in, just so we can know what the problems are in their sector and how they've been affected by COVID-19. So a summation of the feedback of those questionnaires is what is going to, determine the advice, because we're supposed to advise the government on this is what we're supposed to do, and this is this is what the government is supposed to do, and this is what it's supposed to do for the various sectors of the creative economy. Talking about what I'll personally advise, is that they should ginger the industry, the creative sector, by injecting capital into it. That's the first thing, because without capital, earlier on, the DG of the NFC did talk about capacity building. Yes, capacity building to an extent. A lot of the practitioners in the industry are equal to the task. They can play wherever they find themselves across the globe. And I must say that with the kind of jobs that are being churned out, right from the movies that go to the cinema, the content that goes on OTT platforms like the Netflix, you know that, yes, practitioners in the industry in Nigeria are equal to the task. So that is not the issue on ground that we should be concerned about. We should be concerned about how we can bring back capital to the industry, inject it, and make activities continue. Now, when activities continue, we can talk about capacity building later on. So I think that's the major advice I would personally like to give the government.
Now, Adedayo, you have heard from Nuhu. Now, it is quite clear that this is a big challenge before everybody now, but the way forward is that the industry must move on, because take it or leave it, we want to talk about soft powers of countries. This is a soft power in Nigeria. If we don't have another product, Nigeria has a soft power from this direction. But Dr. Chidi Amaduekwe from JOS raised a fundamental issue talking about training and collaboration, but we'll come to that. Let's take our first caller tonight on Tuesday Live. Jude is calling from Owerri, Imo State. Hello, Jude. Hello, Jude. it seems we lost that call. So, looking at it, what's your perspective?
I think Ali Nuru hit the nail on the head. If we look at the present situation, I don't think we should. Our priority should be capacity building. If we look into the gigs and the active player in the film industry, in the creative industry generally, you realize that we have more than enough to still sustain and meet up with what is expected now. Then from that point again, we can now start thinking about capacity building. But presently, government has designed committee for palliatives to bring back.
Let me just hold there. Jude is on now. Hello, Jude.
And they are patronizers of COVID-19 disease and they associated health implications and death. I call the government at all levels to begin now to actually provide adequate funds for the creative industries while encouraging those of them abroad to actually come back and then contribute their own quota so that this industry will actually help in cushioning the effects of the present precarious economic condition that is staring the nation on the face now. Authors and musical artists should actually endeavor to include the preventive measures for COVID-19 in their work, just like musicians like Sonny Okusu did to fight apartheid in South Africa some time ago, so that Nigeria can easily embrace them to prevent the contacting of the spreading of this disease. The importance and benefits of creative industry cannot be overemphasized, as most of our criminal unemployed youth will easily embrace them to earn a living, and by so doing keep themselves busy and reduce idleness and then the crimes associated with it. Since an idle mind is a devil's workshop that can easily become a heavy tool in the hands of armed robbers, kidnappers, cultists, and others to unleash mayhem to the lives and property of innocent Nigerians. Finally, the umbrella body of the creative industry should actually think out ways of digitalizing the operation so that the contacting and spreading of COVID-19 will be reduced to its lowest level. Thank you very much and God bless you.
Thank you, Jude. Jude called in from Owerri. Maybe you conclude your thoughts.
Yeah, like I said, the government has already had this committee working on post-COVID-19, the economic effect and what to be done. This is not going to come in terms of capital alone. It's going to come in form of several ideas being contributed, not only the creative industry. Creative industry will have their own drop on the table and the government look into it. Other economic too, other sector too will have to drop their own. This is what is expected from the government. So if we're able to now put those things into a common listing, government will come out with the best solution on how to address each industry, each sector of the economy. So at the end of the day, we still need to fuse together. The creative industry needs to fuse with, especially with the health industry now, which has to take privilege. So whatever we need to do, we have to look at even our suggestions now, we have to look at fusing into the most cardinal point and how the economy can be rebounded back from all sectors of life. And especially in the creative industry, like we said, we're very lucky that there's nowhere in any sector of the economy where we don't have a place. So, and believing in the capacity we have now, are you talking about producers? Are you talking about distributors? Are you talking about actors and actresses? Are you talking about those on the visual art or whatsoever? For now, to bounce the economy back, I think we have enough. So when we're able to fuse that into the present thing, like I said, this is practical example. COVID-19 has come. At a point, we couldn't even do anything. We're stuck. But suddenly the idea comes and we start using it. And we call in that people could submit their work online. We could censor online, send their certificate back to them. At the end of the day, they'll be able to take it to online platforms, streaming. And they're being paid. So in that light, we see massive inflow of submission. Then I have to call few staff to come maintaining social distance. So such things will come
there for us to take our next caller. But when I come back to you, when we return from Jos, Calabar, and Kano, I'll be asking you what collaborative effort you're putting in place within your own sector. Now, let's take this call from Sylvester. Sylvester is calling from Asokoro in Abuja. Hello, Sylvester.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead, Sylvester.
All right. Okay. Quickly, I just want to thank you all for putting this program together. Honestly, I wish this will be shown every day. Let me just to enlighten you, because number one, the creative industry actually helping. Especially, we need the creative industry now, because there are people that are suffering from psychological trauma. Some people are traumatized. They even, in fact, some have given up. Only God knows how many suicidal cases we have in our country now. In fact, the COVID-19 is not even killing people as the way traumatized people are dying every day now. So this is the time that we need the creative industry more than ever before. Especially now, the federal government to try and see the need that, okay, this industry should be the only platform that can be enlightening, educating, and entertaining the people, because people are suffering. Even the thinking alone will kill you. Forget about the corona. Sometimes somebody will say we prefer watching comedy skits in the social media than listening to NCDC reports, because it's becoming horrifying. It's so terrible. It's like listening to the NCDC report. Every day the cases keep increasing daily, day by day. Okay, what happened to the Chinese people that they brought the country last time? We don't even know their whereabouts. We don't even know where they're in the country. We don't know where they've gone back. So this is the time that the government, in fact, this is the only sector that government should use now. For example, in fact, we need movies too. We need more production. We even need live. Let me just say, just like Alinu said now, if like me, I buy the idea. In fact, Alinu is I'm your number one fan. Because let me just say, I watched both the Kenyan movie, the Noli movie. We are all everywhere. We need people. We need people like you. At least you have grown. You have reached the level now. At least you can even bring other people to learn from you. But how can we galvanize this? How can we make use of this COVID-19 case as a region to create more? Let me just say to create more awareness to the people that, okay, people should come and get some funny movies, action movies, and just forget about their worries. Like me, I'm even tired of listening to the NCDC report and the Ministry of Health. It's too terrible. It's like watching horror thing. Please, we need Nigerian government to pay good attention, especially now.
Thank you, Sylvester. You've made your point. Sylvester called in from Abuja in Asokoro, and I must say that's a challenge there on Ali Nuhu. I believe maybe after the end of Tuesday Live tonight, by tomorrow we shall be seeing a 5-minute production from Kano, from you, so that you touch the sensibilities of Nigeria. Well, we'll take a break. When we return, we'll take some tweets and sustain the conversation. Don't go away.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices, as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
Coronavirus is real. Steps to avoid this pandemic. Wash your hands regularly or sanitize your hands. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth if your hands are not clean. Avoid the spread of coronavirus. Coronavirus is real.
Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying tuned. And just before we went on break, we had a caller from Asokoro. He raised a couple of concerns, and I believe at the appropriate time we shall address them. Now, as we are with some other calls, let's take these tweets. And I want to take these tweets straight to Dr. Chidia Maduekwe in Jos. The tweet coming from Nadom Wiyeps 77 says, in my childhood days, we could conveniently sit as a family and watch many soaps or dramas and listen to musical videos which promote morality. But very sadly today, one can hardly do that, as nudity and erotic scenes is all you see. This is influencing the younger generation badly. What is the NFVCB doing, okay, and the official regulatory agency doing concerning this? Thank you and God bless Nigeria. Nadom Wiyep from Jos. I'll allow you, Doctor, take it, then I come to Adedayo. Jos.
Opening remark, I did say that issues of regulation is very important. The tweet is telling us there is failure in regulation. And if we don't take it serious and continue with our short ad hoc outburst without a structural response to this issue, I don't think we are going to make tremendous progress. Because if you turn 10, 15 years ago from now, you will look at several reports and several documentation as to what to do. And we don't do it. We don't follow through it as people involved in the industry. And that has a huge impact to our deliverables. We don't have to reinvent the wheel as Nigerian creative stakeholders. Why? Because we have other successful climate ecosystems that have succeeded. And I mentioned again that we had a collaboration agreement with my counterpart in Paris, signed this 14th January this year. Assuming we want to grow our industry, I think it is time to, part of the collaboration agreement is because Macron came to Nigeria and he had great respect for issues of culture, and the two countries entered into a bilateral agreement for culture. And we derive strength from that to go into that collaboration. And we all know, again, that France is a major film industry in the world, if not the second biggest film industry in the world. We all celebrate Cannes Film Festival as being the best in the world. Now, this government of France is willing to support Nigeria to grow their industry. And if we don't want to look into that direction, then how do we want to make progress? Because you are looking at a film industry in France that had lasted for about 75 years, right from the end of the Second World War. Now they have come into collaboration agreement with their counterpart, which is Nigerian Film Corporation. It is good that we can look into the content of that collaboration agreement to grow our industry. The counterpart of NFC in France, they are not being supported by government. Rather, they generate revenue and give to government. And the template is there how they succeed. I was listening to my brother Steve calling from Calabar, and he was mentioning all those tariffs and taxes. In France, those tariffs and taxes are warehoused under the counterpart of Nigerian Film Corporation, the CNC. And it is from there they make releases of such fund to the filmmaker and guide him in such a way that they even see to it that his profit is reserved for him to come back for another film production with additional funding. So the point I'm making here that we can only solve this problem through a structural response, not short outburst discussions, and we fail to take cognizance what we have done, other committees in the last 10, 15 years. And if we continue like that, I'm sorry, we may not be able to be speaking truth to power in order to solve the problem that we are faced with. He talked about the issue of internet issues and streaming and all that. It might interest you to know that Nigerian Film Corporation is working with Nigerian Communication Commission in order to have a policy, because things rise and fall based on either there is policy or no policy. We are working with Nigerian Communication Commission to see whether there can be a national data tariff, so that when you are streaming your film, it is be a dedicated tariff for streaming films, which will make films available, affordable, and that will grow the industry better than what we are totally...
Back to you. Let's take this caller from Yenegua, Bayelsa State, David West. We'll come back to you in just, please. Hello, David West. Hello,
yes, good evening. Thank you very much for putting me on the line.
Please.
You see, I just want to mention one thing here, and it's of importance. For the creative industry, yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Yes, you see, for the people in the creative industry, I want to say that the government should do well. The government should do well to take care of piracy, so that these people in the creative industry will read from what they have actually shown. A lot of this piracy issue is also a problem to the creative industry to grow. It's a problem to, motivate people to go into film production, music, and what have you. It's not enough when you spend time, energy, and money to produce a film. Use your own ingenuity, make your creativity, and all of a sudden somebody somewhere gets something to pirate it just to steal that your creativity. It's not enough. So the government should do well to check that. And for our actors and actresses that are there, please, I also, particularly the musicians, I also want to tell them to have a rethink on the kind of music they give to us and the kind of musical videos we see. Children are watching this thing, for God's sake. It should be totally censored. Let every music and every dance step they want to give to us be something that is creative, something that we can learn from, and not these bomb issues. You see nude pictures all around. No. We should not begin to go that way. Though they are part of creativity, but then this thing should be seen. I think for now, that's my opinion. Have a nice day. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you, David West. And quickly, I'm happy to see that Fidelis Duka is back. Good to see you again, Fidelis. And quickly on you, as a content provider, are you challenged? Do you have plans to rejig your content? Before I take the tweet on, you'll address.
Yes, I actually mentioned that in my previous intervention. I said COVID-19 has made most of us more creative now. I see hope. I do not want to feel hopeless at this point in time. I think it's important that we begin to look at the optimistic part of the pandemic. I want to quickly react to some issues that were raised by the MD of the NFC, that's Dr. Chikwe. He talked about the collaboration with France. Brilliant idea. That was signed in, according to him, was signed in January. We are in May now, almost approaching June. The entire world at this point is competing for help. Even the France is mentioning now, I don't think with the economy, most countries are going into a recession. I think we should look inwards and begin to think of how we can creatively build this industry. That's why I want to agree with Alinu and Thomas from Abuja, who said the MD of the ED of NFVCB, who said that it's important at this point to inject capital into the sector. That's what we need now. Capacity building is not what we need at this point in time. you are in a serious situation where the economy is going down. Oil has gone down very well. What can we export to the entire world and bring foreign exchange? Like you mentioned, Netflix, the YouTube channels. Can young men begin to produce more content and put on social media platforms and begin to make foreign exchange for the economy? Can people begin to produce video games that will go out? These are things we should be thinking of now. If you're talking about, and then I don't know, mention, we have gotten to a point where we have very creative people. People have made films that were supposed to be released in February, March, April. They are now stopped. How will these films come out? Mr. Thomas mentioned that the cinema owners are thinking of doing open-air screenings where you drive your car to an open environment and watch the films on big screens. These are the areas we should be thinking of. We should be more optimistic. Capacity building at this point should be the least of our problem. He also talked about how we should be more concerned about policy. I agree. I would expect that by now the NSC should have met with the NCC, as he mentioned, and begin to talk about very cheap data processes where the networks can begin to allow us to stream our films at very low rates, considering the poor connectivity. Those are the areas. As a content producer, for me now, I'm looking at more creative ways to make my content. Yesterday I did something very funny. I sent out an audition notice, which is a virtual audition. You don't have to come to my office in Calabar or in Lagos for your audition. Just do your audition on your phone and send me the video online. I will assess you and know if you are good enough for the job. And then when we get to the point of production, I have to look for that creative way of engaging my artists. These are ways we should be thinking of now. Because at this point in time, what the sector needs now, the entire sector, like Adele Thomas mentioned in Abuja, what the sector needs now, beyond the creative sector, even the oil industry, is injection of fund. That's why even the federal government is going out there to look for loans, the World Bank loan and other loans. We must rejig the sector. We've lost 3 months. How do we bring back the sector? The only way to bring back the sector is to put enough funds in the sector that we don't have so many people going unemployed. And this is an industry that can employ so many people. Those who are into event management, those who are into the visual arts, as I mentioned earlier, authors, several people along the value chain will be employed if we look at a creative way of injecting this fund in the sector.
Well, thank you. I'll come back to you. Let's go to Kano, but before Kano, let's take this caller from Lagos. Peter is calling from Lagos. Hello, Peter. Hello, Peter.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good evening, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Very well. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is this. It's difficult. Yeah, the first thing I want to say is that it is difficult to get through. So when somebody gets through, please don't waste much time to invite the person in, because it's cost.
Raise your point. Raise your point.
That's
Raise your
one.
point.
The other thing I want to say is, with respect to the discussion, the creative industry is doing quite a lot with respect to the COVID issue, because when you had your break, the story we had, the dramas we are receiving, on instructing people, educating people on what to do. I have heard music from different people which are therapeutic. Some of them are therapeutic. People talk about psychiatric issues and that. If you listen to some of the music that have been played, they are quite therapeutic. And the artists are also helping to educate and to inform. But outside COVID, my great worry about Nollywood and the singers are they are destroying our family values and social values, especially order and morality. These have been destroyed. I took it up with someone in the conference, and they told me they were only reflecting what is happening in society. And your duty is not to reflect what is happening in society. Your duty is to correct what is wrong about what is happening. That's what creativity comes about. You know, so I want to see authenticity in the creativity, what we're hearing. I want to see our tradition rightly represented, not destroyed, not caricatured. I want to see creativity that is distinctive. when they produce. I think I should stop here. Thank you.
We lost that call. Well, I think Peter called from Lagos, and I believe his point has been raised. Going to Kano now. Nuhu, what's your reaction to this tweet coming from David James Ntia? He says, in line with what Peter said from Lagos, can Nollywood industry develop platform to visualize their dreams amid the global pandemic?
Yes, Nollywood can be able to do that. But you see, like I mentioned earlier on, and like what my senior colleagues mentioned, what we're talking about now is capital. Without that capital, nothing can be done. We have practitioners that are equal to the task any day, anytime. So if there's enough capital for us to go into these things, we'll definitely do. We might even come up with things that are unimaginable, things you never expect we could do in our beloved country.
Now, before I go to Calabar with Fidelis, let's take this update just coming in from NCDC. The latest report on COVID-19 by the NCDC shows that Nigeria has 276 confirmed new cases. A breakdown of the figure shows that Lagos has 161, Rivers 36, Edo 27, Kaduna 19, Nasarawa 10, and Oyo State 16. Others are Kano 4, Delta and Ebonyi 3 each, Gombe 2, while Ogun, Ondo, Borno, Abia, and Bauchi states all have 1 case each. This brings the total figure to 8,344, with 2,385 discharged and 249 deaths. I beg your pardon, I'm told Oyo is 6, not 16. Okay, back to the program. We'll keep you updated with the update on COVID-19 from NCDC. Now let's go to Calabar, where Fidelis is still on Zoom to us. Fidelis, this tweet is coming in from David James Ntia 1. He says, I'm asking you to address because you're a content provider. Coronavirus has caused a wide loss of funds in the entertainment industry. I think it's time for the entertainment industry to think outside the box. Virtual Dropbox movies with viable connections can be a source of funds for them. How do you react to it?
Thank you very much. I think to the comment by Intia I mentioned something in that same regard earlier. I said, look, the industry has to be more creative now. We are looking at other options. I also mentioned my initiative that yesterday I called for auditions, which was virtual. I'm not going to meet any of... In the last 20 years, I've done auditions where I have physical contacts with my artists and all that. But in this particular audition, I'm not going to meet anybody. You have to do virtual audition. At the point in time to be a Zoom, when I make my first selection, I will now go on Zoom and then see each and every one of them. Like I said, even going further, I forgot something to mention. Even I spoke to a couple of my colleagues. We're also looking at, even for location filming and all that, we're looking at testing before going on location and all that, to also, like Mr. Thomas mentioned from Abuja, he said that we also need to begin to partner with the health industry and see how the industry can function post-COVID-19. Because anyhow you look at it, this COVID-19 will be with us for the next 1.5 years. We heard that there's not going to be a vaccine in the next couple of years, maybe 2 years. So we need to also begin to look at how we can make our films, even film now, in an environment where people are safe, where we maintain physical distancing and all that, and where we have to even do testing. And we're hoping that we'll move from this molecular testing to a very simpler testing that we're talking about, where the testing can be a bit more affordable. So for when you are going on set, you put in your budget, you test your cast and crew, so that before you go on set, you can work with them and all that. So these are things we are looking at. And beyond that, I want to respond to one of the callers who called earlier and talked about immoral films. I think we have to be very objective while we look at Nollywood. Nollywood is a very big industry, an industry that employs close to 1 million people. And then you look at the number of films that are made every year. You cannot, because you see one or two films. In the last couple of years, in the last 5 years, the quality of films have improved tremendously. Tremendously, I would say that the quality of films have improved. Nobody wants to make this kind of film that you're talking about. Those are films made about 15, 10 years ago. So we must also be very objective. Yes, there might be some people still making those films, but in the multitude, you still have a few people who make such films. You must also commend the contribution of the creative sector to COVID-19. We've done very well, this sector. We've done so many jingles at no cost, at our own cost. We are doing them, making them out, because we felt that the first thing is that we are the first contact to the public. Like even the broadcast industry, from NTA to all the broadcast stations, you've seen several jingles done at no cost. Nobody was paid for this cost. People assume that when you hear these jingles on radio and TV, they're not paid for. But we feel that if I'm safe, the collective is safe. So my point is that, yes, like I've mentioned it severally, we are looking at creative ways. The film industry will not be the same again. Neither any sector in Nigeria, be it the banking industry, broadcast industry, everything will change. In the last couple of weeks, people have been working in smaller numbers in the offices. People have been told to stay at home. People have been working from home. So the next couple of, that's what I was telling Dr. Chikwe in IMD in NFC, that what we should be looking at now is how we can bring back the industry, because we are getting to a point of total collapse. If the sector, the creative sector, from music to film to all the sectors, visual arts, we don't come back to work in the next couple of weeks, it's a danger for the sector. Because it's an industry that employs, this sector employs very young people. Very young people. A man goes to look for a job in a bank or in the industry, doesn't find a job, and he remembers he has some creative ideas and he begins to practice them. So we must, as a people, collectively, and I'm happy that almost all the callers who have called have said we must sustain this sector. And I see this sector as a major sector that can revamp the economy. Look at Hollywood. Hollywood, of course, Hollywood is one of the biggest economies in the world. Hollywood, just the California economy is bigger than the entire Africa put together. So if you look at it from that point of view, and like Mr. Thomas mentioned in Abuja, he also said something about the industry is huge. Huge in the sense that the kind of revenue that comes from only the film industry. I've not mentioned music. I was checking yesterday online, and I saw that even some particular musicians have as much as 350 million, more than the population of Nigeria, as subscribers on their platforms. These are Nigerians. You can check them online.
Okay, Fidelis, let's hold you there. We'll be back to you in Calabar. If you're just joining us, you can be part of the conversation through our phone line displayed on the screen, and also our Twitter handle at Tuesday Live NTA. We'll take the next line of reporting. We'll return. We'll go to Jos, Abuja, Kano, and then Calabar. The next report is coming from Kano.
Now I have started dressing chicken for people. This is because people are not patronizing us for sewing, and we have to eat.
And he prays, when the dark cloud passes, a beautiful rainbow will appear. There is no doubt that novel coronavirus pandemic has a negative effect on global economy. Kano, one of the populous cities and fast-rising economies in the West African Sahel region, has its share of this unfortunate economic meltdown. Some of the industries most affected around this time of the year in the ancient city is the fashion industry, as this is a season where people sew clothes, make hair to celebrate the Eid al-Fitr. It is at this time that tailors and hairdressers make huge turnovers that may sustain them for most part of the year. But with the city, like the rest of the world, struggling with novel coronavirus pandemic, their hopes are dashing away. Awul Musa, a tailor that makes hundreds of thousands of naira around this time, is idle, like several others, due to lack of patronage because of the lockdown, slowly losing grip on his finances. Afraid to fall into a bad trap that could destroy him completely, Awul looked inward and took a chance to deviate from fashion to dressing chicken for sale.
Although what I get is not anything to write home about, I have to do something. An idle mind is a devil workshop.
Other tailors are also uncertain of their future, which is affecting both their physical and psychological well-being, showing restiveness, causing public nuisance, to the society.
It is a difficult time that nobody wishes to witness. People are spending their money on food only, so sewing or buying ready-made clothes is not a priority.
COVID-19 has really a negative impact on our work. Now we just hope something good will come up.
The impact of COVID-19 on the economy will definitely be felt across all sectors, but it is hoped that people in the Asian city of Kano will come up with creative innovations that will help keep the likes of Awal from engaging in illicit activities that may end up destroying their lives. For Awal, this Eid al-Fitr, he was able to put food on the table for his family.
Our next clip report is coming from Asaba. A picturesque images of Asaba, the Delta State capital, a multi-billion naira film village, is in the pipeline to strengthen the evergreen hospitality and entertainment industry in the city. For years, key players in the creative industry have tapped from the huge potentials in the state, with movies and concerts coming thick and fast. Of recent, this industry has suffered a big blow from the outbreak of coronavirus pandemic, with mounting casualties in the cinemas, recreational and event centers, resulting in huge economic losses.
There are more than 70 cinemas in Nigeria. So all the cinemas have been shut now since March 23rd. Financially, it's difficult to put a figure on it. But to give you an example of how it affects everybody, we have staff, we have suppliers, we have things like cleaners. Everybody's been affected.
Every artist right now, price has dropped. If you open up everywhere and you call an artist, and the artist wants to start calling that 5 million and 3 million and 4 million naira, that means that artist has been very okay during the whole problem.
I had 10 carryovers.
You had 10 carryovers.
Osson Chidebere, popularly known as the Confamous, is one of those tapping from the social media tools to promote himself within this period.
The major place we make our money is from social gatherings, and of course we can't do that now. So it has affected everyone. But the good thing is that some of us, before COVID-19, some of us were able to build a strong fan base online.
Using them as endorsement is one. Giving them funds to produce films that would depict the health guidelines given by the federal government on COVID-19 is also very important.
When we eventually open, we want to operate at 50% capacity. So we want to ensure that we maintain the social distancing.
No doubt, the pandemic has left an injury to the creative industry that will take time to heal. The report from Asaba leads us to the sustenance of the conversation. Let's go to Jos now. Dr. Chidia Maduekwe, what's your perspective? Because by the last count, it's a huge list, the creative industry in Nigeria. Like I said earlier, is one of the strong soft power of Nigeria. Now, what's your perspective regarding collaboration and safeguards?
Come to that, I want to repeat that we cannot use ephemeral means to get a sustainable existence in the ecosystem. Right from Goodluck Jonathan days, money had been released, have always been released to the industry, and we could not gainfully convince ourselves that this is the outcome of it because there was no structural framework for that. When President Buhari came, the former Minister for Finance released the last tranche of those money. CBN is releasing money. Bank of Industry has money. I think last year about 26 billion naira was provided by Bank of Industry for the Bank of Industry, yes, for the creative industry. And this government is committed. That is why the Minister of Information has come up with this arrangement as to what can be done post-COVID. So I must situate it that government has been releasing money and government is interested to release more money. But I am saying that without a structural framework, we are not going to get any result. And I'm not here to come and pander to what I know is fact. We must be able to have policy guiding us. You can't look for money without policy. This is not the time to say you cannot see that and okay, why is that committee meeting? The committee is meeting to draw up a template, a policy framework that will guide government intervention. So you cannot say that policy is not now. Now is the time for policy. And I'm saying that we are not reinventing the wheel. You have France as one of the biggest film economy, and they have come to Nigeria to have a partnership. You don't want to key into it to know how France have made it, and we just think that we can just continue that way. We are interested as government to solve post-COVID-19 challenges. And we must understand that this thing can be solved from a structural point of view. And that is what I'm saying. When government is interested in taking care of the energy issue, they go to the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Authority. So you must have regulation. If you don't have regulation, you don't have policy, then I'm sorry, we talk about the money, it comes, it will go like Goodluck Jonathan money, it will go like other monies that have been coming here. I am still insisting that we must not think that we are inventing the wheel. We must collaborate with other film cultures that have come to Nigeria to say they want to help us and see how we can leapfrog to where we need to be. That is my position, and I hold no apologies.
Still on you, how do you amplify this? You have mentioned it briefly, but there's a tweet here coming from Ebuka Ekwesili. It says, there is no doubt that the creative industry is a big player in the nation's economy. It has provided employment opportunities to a great number of Nigerians directly and indirectly. The government must take up seriously problems affecting this sector, especially given the COVID-19 situation. How do you amplify this?
It is very concerned. That is why the Honorable Minister set up this committee. Government before now has been devolving money from CBN, from Bank of Industry. So government is committed. All I'm saying, take for example right now, National Bureau of Statistics has been commissioned to do the very first study, comprehensive study and analysis about the film industry. How can we be talking about a big industry like Nigerian film industry? National Bureau of Statistics have not been able to conduct a study. It is all those framework that will help us calibrate effectively investment that you are bringing into the industry that will ramp up capacity enablement of those who are the active players in the industry. So if we want to wish it away, I still maintain that we will come back some other year to talk about there is not enough funding in this place. There must be policy, there must be an outline as to how to engage. There must be a regulatory agency. There must be a regulatory agency for the industry in Nigeria. That is the way it is all over the country. Look at Ghana that came up the other day to form the National Film Authority. They are regulating as an agency of government to enhance that Ghana ramps up their development and come, even overtake Nigeria if they're able. So we can't run away from this. When oil started in America, it was not regulated, but at a point you have to say, no, this is the way to go about it. So I still maintain that government having a regulatory agency, coupled with the fact that they want to put money in the this thing, and the fact that there are multiple sources of funding. That is the issue. It's not coordinated. Like I've said, this particular government agency is funding, another government agency is funding, and yet the industry said there is no money. That is why there must be a structural response to this idea of giving energy to our creative sector. There must be a structural response. Like the National Bureau of Statistics is now conducting a comprehensive study for the very first time. It is important. While that is going on, money will come. I'm not saying that government is not going to put money, but we must recognize that they're already putting money and then see how we can solve this problem in a more permanent way. We can do far more than what we are doing. That's the point I'm trying to say. That's it.
Back to Thomas. Thomas, from what Dr. Chidi Amaduekwe is saying, he has hinged so much on regulatory framework. And within this framework, regulatory agency, which is what you're doing. Now, what are those things to be regulated and be made more viable and professionally?
Thank you. Let me, in the first place, appreciate the stakeholders in the industry. And again, making known, I get shocked when I heard my colleagues say there's no regulation, no regulatory agency of government. I'm wondering where National Film and Video Censors Board comes in. That's been working tremendously with all stakeholders. And for the first time in the history of this country, it is this period of President Muhammad Buhari that the creative industry had never had a problem with National Film and Video Censors Board. Why? Because we have to come on board with the laid down mandate of National Film and Video Censors Board, which is regulatory. We regulate the film industry. They domicile with us. One, the film they produce, who are the producers, who are the partakers, who are really involved in the industry. The cinema sector as well is being regulated by us. From 20, the regulation has brought from 20 cinemas to about 60 before the COVID-19 shutdown. And the tremendous increase in the GDP to the economy is so massive. Take, for example, most online platforms don't regulate, don't censor, don't classify their works before now. But today, I can bet you, the largest, which I don't want to mention as a free advert, of those on the online platform, now censor their films. They don't even collect their films from whoever produced it without censoring. So if that is in place, and stakeholders are conforming to the law, then we shouldn't say there is no policy. There are policy on ground. What I will probably agree, or if we have to reform the statement, is that every day in woman's life and in development, there is always changes. There could be reformation. Sending your bill, sending the law, collecting, in the first place, collecting the contribution of the stakeholders and sending it back to National Assembly, either to executive bills or the legislative bill, so that there could be reformation based on the global trend that is happening. If there is no regulation or no policy on ground, we wouldn't have been able to count the figures we are counting and seeing the development. And like I said, when I said I want to appreciate the stakeholders for coming into line with the policy of the federal government. How? This wouldn't have been possible if the government has not given back the industry to them. So, okay, let's come. From the beginning, from the inception of this administration, the government has brought in stakeholders at various levels. Ministerial panels, ministerial committee, giving input and input and input. And that is why we are able to even get to this stage. And the increments we have in the film industry was because there's a policy. But for, like I said, every day woman's life needs changes. Nobody expected COVID-19. When it comes, people have to start looking. And that's why the minister formed committee. Even when stakeholders, some stakeholders and GIT felt they are not involved, I pleaded with them. I said, let's all come together. Whatever you bring and the committee bring, then we now look into it together. And they are working day and night to make sure things work in line with the present situation.
Okay, quickly react to these tweets coming from Paul Ibe before we go to Kano. Government should create a medium for film distribution on our local platforms. Let the platforms be supported in order to pay content producers well to do more. How do you react to that?
Oh, well, it's a bit, film is not just a film. Like we always said, art is not just art's sake. Film is a business. There's a contract. The producer and the buyer. The end users are us, who has to either subscribe or buy in CD or DVD. But they should, whoever creates a job, should be able to bring in those in the law firm who are in the creative industry as well, to stand in between before they go into contract and collect whatsoever money. The local online platform are emerging. And we are giving them the best support through the ease of business. Now they can come on board without much without any stress, not even much, without any stress. That's exactly the only thing we can do. For government side, you see, businesses thrive, when businesses thrive, economies thrive. Government is seen providing an enabling environment, which the present government is doing. And that is why we are having an increment, an idea of the people involved in the creative industry. So the government cannot say, now we want to create this online platform. We want to create this online platform. We have NFC that is mandated to produce and find a way of distribution, which is public. So we have the private sector that I regulate, who are equally doing tremendously well. So those are the things we can only do where government, people should realize with the global trend that apart from some basic things, government is not supposed to be seen in businesses. And that is why we have an open operation. The present government has an open operation. AU free trade is part of those policies that will enhance the growth of our industry. Here to Ghana, Ghana to Tanzania, those free trade was signed. The agreement was, this thing was signed by President Muhammad Buhari. That's a policy that tells us investors, only private sectors grows the economy. Why government concentrate on policy issues that will drive the economy, that will give enabling environment for the creative industry, for the creative idea, genuinity of the people to develop and make money, which invariably goes back to the government from the little taxes that you pay to develop the environment. That's the way things work in developed countries, and that's exactly what the government is doing.
Okay. Quickly, Ali Nuhu, I've kept you waiting for some time, and Dr. Chidia has raised a couple of concerns regarding collaboration and safeguard, a public sector perspective. I would love you to give us a private sector perspective, but before then, you raised an issue at the beginning of the program. We talked about the need for us to also have local platforms where people could subscribe to, like Netflix. Now, David Ntia is asking in his tweet, is there any Nigerian production company that Nigerians can subscribe to just as Netflix so that funds can be generated for the entertainment industry?
Of course, there are platforms. There's Iroko, there's Notflix, not Netflix. From the north, we have Arewa 24 on demand, we have Hausa 247, and a lot more. Most of those from the south, I do not know, but a couple of the ones we have from the north, I've just mentioned. So that's that. Now, talking about what Doctor said, Doctor has been talking about regulation, first of all. Regulation, like Sir Adedayo Thomas just said, there's regulation. Most of these movies people watch are classified. Some people have been talking about the kind of movies being made, that they are immoral, they don't promote our culture, they don't do this, they don't do that. You see, after classification, the censorship board cannot go to your house and tell you which movie to watch. But if you are to watch a movie with your entire family, you should look at the classification, what age group is supposed to watch that movie before you watch a movie with your family. If a movie is not for kids, you're not supposed to watch it with kids. You can maybe watch it privately or refuse to even bring it to your house to watch. And even if it is playing on any of the stations, you have a choice of changing to another station. You're not forced. So I don't actually believe that these movies are corrupting, the upbringing of children. I think it is the parents that are not doing the right thing. If they only check before they allow their children to watch, I'm sure this will be solved. That's one. Now, talking about collaborations, yes, it's a good thing for us to practice collaborations with maybe some other countries or several companies coming together to do a job. But then now that we're talking about COVID-19, Sir Fidelis Dukas said something. He said, we're talking about our country now. Even the France that the NFC had an agreement with are battling with their own economy. So at this point in time, we cannot bring up such a topic. This can come later when we've revived our own industry. So from my own point of view, this is the advice and this is how it should be. Again, there's one other thing he touched on. I think he talked about policy making. There are no structures. There are structures. I've been in this industry for over 20 years. Now, when we started out, there wasn't any structure of distribution. You just take your movie to a marketer. The marketer dictates the number of prints or the copies of the movie that will be printed without your know. You don't even know if the number he tells you is the actual number that is being printed. So whatever he gives you as your remuneration, you accept because there's no structure. There's no way you can, check it. There's no way you can be able to detect that. Now, presently, we have cinemas. The monies he was talking about during the time of Jonathan Goodluck, the intervention funds that came in. In southern Nigeria, they were able to access those monies, start up cinemas like Film House, Genesis Deluxe Cinema, they were able to access those funds and they were able to put down structures which Nollywood is currently using. And that's what they use to generate whatever they are generating when a movie is released. So there's structure. It is only in northern Nigeria that we do not have these structures. We just have Film House Cinema in Kano. So I think what we're supposed to look at is to look at the whole thing nationally, not just as a part of the country. Because if you have more cinemas in the north, even films that are produced in southern Nigeria can fare very well in the north because most of the actors that feature in this film, be it from northern Nigeria, southern Nigeria, they have fans cut across the entire country. So I think that's where we're supposed to, sit down on the drawing table and iron out. But talking about structure, there is structure. All we're supposed to do is to develop this structure. I was opportune to go to India one time to study during this project that came up during Goodluck Jonathan's regime. And during that regime, we went for the course. As we were being lectured by some of the lecturers, one of them told us that, look, you must not say you're going to copy the formats of either Hollywood or Bollywood when it comes to distribution of your products. If you have content and you feel there's a channel through which you can easily distribute your content, you can go ahead and do that. He gave a reference because in northern Nigeria we have viewing centers, we have community cinemas. He said, okay, fine, you can use those community cinemas as, a model. You just draw up a structure and this is how you can distribute your film. And currently the censorship board in Kano is doing that. We have the statistics of the number of viewing centers we have in Kano. And you can be able to take your movie around those viewing centers in the 44 local governments you have in Kano because they have licensed offices in this state. So these are structures put in place. All we're supposed to do is to tap in from this structure. So structure is not the issue. What we're talking about is how to, bring back the industry to life. And that can only be done, I have said it and I'm repeating it, with capital. Without capital, this cannot be done.
Alinu, thank you so much for being on Tuesday Live tonight.
My pleasure.
And we hope that your committee will deliver on its mandate very soon. Bye-bye. Now, I saw Fidelis Duka is back. Fidelis, we know it's an evolving process, not yet a destination, and we have hope that it will develop. What's your last word as signing off?
Alinu has captured everything I would have said. I will just quickly say that it will be very disingenuous for the MD of the NFC to say that the Goodluck intervention for the industry was a failure, because he implied it in his statement. Aliu has said that they went to, that same training took them to India. I was in the United States with a couple of about 30 other filmmakers who were trained in the US. Films were made, cinema houses were built, people were employed, several films were produced. And then when we talk about the industry, we should be very sincere with ourselves. As we move forward post-COVID-19, like Aliu mentioned, and of course the MD of the NSC, we are very optimistic that this committee set up by the minister will come out. For the first time, the industry has agreed to work together. And when the MD should also realize that this discussion is not about the film industry. I've been very particular about the creative sector, which involves other sectors of the creative value chain. Not only film. He was more concerned about structure. Other sectors also have structures which have been functioning for years. And even the film industry. I will expect that the MD of the NSC should realize that his agency is basically a developmental agency when it was set up, while the Census Board was for regulation. That is what the Act says. And it should be more concerned about how do you revamp, like Alino said, how do you bring back this industry to life? Because for 3 months, any industry that goes into comatose for 3 months, how do you bring back to life? And capacity building and a collaboration with fans. Fans, as I said earlier, is not a commercial film-making industry. It is not a commercial film-making industry.
Thank you so much, Fidelis.
To what you are. So finally, I will just say that we are very optimistic. We are very optimistic that post-COVID-19, the industry will bounce back. We are going to evolve very creative ways of making our films and engage the government to see how we can also help to revamp the economy and build a stronger Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Fidelis Duka. Fidelis Duka, filmmaker and managing director of FAT FM in Calabar. He joined us via Zoom in Calabar. It's so nice having you on the program tonight.
Thank you very much.
And to Jos, Dr. Chidi Amadukwe, well, we are just on wrapping up the program tonight. What are your reassuring words for Nigerians and the industry?
My reassuring word is here that I'm surprised my colleague Dayo is misinforming people here. He regulates content. That doesn't mean that he's a regulator. Content is not all that defines the film industry in terms of regulation. And if we want to confuse ourselves, there is no other part of the world where the classification board is the regulator of the industry. This is the structural malalignment I'm talking about. And if we don't want to be honest with ourselves and get it right, we can always come back next year, 2 years for another talk shop. And it remains that way. And my own is to be frank about it. NFC, you say NFC is for development of the industry. Are you likely to be developing the industry without concern about the regulation of the industry? What Film and Censorship Board is a board for content regulation, classification and censorship. And that's all the information I wanted to make. I may not speak in a manner to be patronizing. I want to say the fact the way it is. I didn't say the Good Lord Jonathan Fund did not succeed, but I'm saying that government has been putting money and government is still interested in putting money. But we are today...
I'll tell you, thank you so much for being on the program tonight. We'll make time to maybe sustain the conversation, just like you have said. Dr. Chidi Amadukwe, Managing Director, Nigerian Film Corporation, Jos Plateau State. It was not having on the program tonight. Well, back in Abuja, just one word as we go.
Well, there is a light at the end of the channel, at the end of the tunnel. Creative industry stakeholders expect the best from government. They're not sleeping, they're working, and we appreciate your effort to keep the creative industry alive, especially during this trying period. I wish all of you good luck and more development in that sector, in this economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dayo Thomas, Executive Director, National Film and Video Censors Board, Abuja. Thank you so much. Well, that's it on the program tonight. We looked at unleashing Nigeria's creative industry amid COVID-19. Thank you for your calls, and also thank you for the tweets you sent. We are glad you did. On behalf of all of us, bye-bye.